At the edge of the abyss, Xiu hasn't noticed the hidden hand in the shadows. The truth and resentment between the disciples have long been like a tangled web. The two of them are trapped in a cage called obsession, waiting for the final outcome or the same abyss. Xiu, who thought he had won, was in a good mood. He was just about to leave Fushan. Youth met a patient son. This patient is a famous rich man. When Xiu politely greeted the rich man, he learned from the rich man's son that 6 years ago, his father suddenly came to the shop and said that he would travel all over the world. After that, there was no response. This detail is like a thunderbolt breaking the fog. He was very sure that the rich man was not missing, but was killed by the professor. It turned out that 6 years ago, Xiu, who had just become a professor's apprentice, returned home in the middle of the night. Suddenly a man came out from behind and pressed him to his body. Xiu fought back, but his strength was too weak. He was in a perverted state and thought Xiu was going to succeed. The next day, the female doctor's mentor urged the professor. He heard that the student of the surgery, King, suddenly asked for a leave. When he felt that something must have happened, he found Xiu's home with his eldest disciple. When the door was opened, the professor found Xiu's face full of wounds. The yard was also full of garbage. This is very similar to Xiu, who is strict and self-disciplined on a daily basis. The sharp intuition tells him that things are not simple. The professor went straight to the eldest disciple's house without hesitation. Then he looked at Xiu directly. The professor's eyes were sharp as a knife. Xiu was like a needle. He could only deal with one sentence casually. He said he was just slipping. However, the professor seemed to see through everything. He said something that mad people confused. This seems to be a sudden remark. Even the professor's understanding of Xiu also hinted at the complexity of his own concealment. However, Xiu did not understand. He only felt that the professor seemed to be able to see through the panic of his forced calm. He used a strong aura to step on the alert. Xiu was like a needle. He could only make an excuse to call for help from his senior. After hanging up the phone, Xiu found that the professor was gone. He rushed to the garbage room. As expected, he saw the corpse of the pervert man that the professor was accusing on studying. The professor didn't answer the phone at all. He just looked at Xiu quietly, but the sense of oppression of the dead was helpless. Xiu could only drag out what happened last night. Although he said that he was in the right place, Xiu knew in his heart that he did have a murderous intent. Otherwise, how could he be so quick to stab the pervert's neck? After listening to Xiu's explanation, the professor did not jive any consolation in his eyes. The cause and effect of personal emotions are not important at all. The important thing is how to comfort him. Professor's words made Xiu confused. Normal people should call the police. Not long after, the senior finally came back and took the professor to the car. Xiu suddenly remembered what the professor had just said. Thinking of the professor's attitude, Xiu suddenly laughed wildly. In Xiu's eyes, that professor has always been his idol and the target of pursuit. Now, even if he kills someone, that professor will unconditionally stand by him. Xiu also helped him destroy the world. He suddenly realized that the professor and he wary of the same kind. Then it means that the professor also has a crazy side. Like him, this instantly made Xiu feel that he was closer to the professor. So he began to regard the professor as his own. No matter what you and I want, Professor Kui will be satisfied. Even if Hemiot's the senior at the San Mingzi exhibition, even the unselfish senior is a little jealous. However, this kind of heart-to-heart love did not last long. On this day, Xiu suddenly found that the professor had changed. Since the professor's 20-year-old friend came to the hospital and asked him to help with the operation, the professor will laugh every day and chat with his old friend. In other people's eyes, this is the expression of seeing each other happily. However, based on Xiu's observation of the professor, he and he are of the same kind. He won't waste time on socializing at all. If there is such a person, it is the expression of wanting to kill people. At first, this was just Xiu's guess, until the day of the old friend's operation. Xiu used to be the professor's assistant. However, without notifying Xiu, he became the senior. This further verified the guess in Xiu's heart.so during the operation. He deliberately stopped the senior and walked into the operating room on behalf of the other party. The professor's condition was instantly paralyzed for a moment. The operation was about to begin. He could only let Xiu be his assistant. However, when the professor asked Xiu to help with surgery knife, the professor knew that Xiu did it on purpose, but he could only force Feliwick out of the operating room. After the operation, Xiu came to the professor with a bow. Xiu really took the professor as her own. She made her own discovery very frankly. She came 100% sure that the professor's unusual behavior must be to deliberately mess up the operation and kill the old friend without letting himself do it. She was afraid that she would find herself in the operation. The professor looked at Xiu Xiart. He thought he had hidden a good intention, but he was seen through by this trustworthy disciple. He was shocked by Xiu's keen insight. He was a little embarrassed and silent. He was respected by Xiu. His shameless behavior was discovered by the most important student. He was angry, ashamed, and confused. Various emotions intertwined. In the end, the professor didn't say anything. He turned around and left the hospital. Xiu thought he had solved the problem for the professor. Unexpectedly, the next day, the quota for Xiu to go to Boston for training became the senior. They were so in love with each other. But from then on, they began to compete with each other. They even beat each other, until Xi was kicked out of the hospital by the professor with a special power. The doctor's license was revoked. He was forced to make a living in the non-city. He thought that the professor had done something wrong to him. She was so angry that she couldn't breathe. And Xiu was right. The murderer was indeed Professor Cui. In order to get rid of the rich man again, Professor Cui deliberately applied ointment on the door handle of the car. The rich man's finger just touched the door handle of the Los Reyes car. Suddenly, it was stuck by an unusual adhesive. Unprepared, he subconsciously rubbed his nose. In the next second, he called his son. Please pick up the phone. Looking at the blood spilling out of the blood, Professor Cui gently handed over the paper. Let the rich man open the car door and ran away in a hurry. He followed behind slowly, looking at him. He suddenly walked to the edge of the cliff. The whole killing process was clean and smooth. It took less than a minute. Under the cliff, the wild dogs perished. Even the process of dealing with the corpse was safe. Professor Cui thought that he had killed him perfectly, but he didn't expect that he was found dead by his apprentice Xiu.